Now I'm sitting with Elliot Chitima, who is a co-author of the book called The Storm, and he co-authors with Rumbi Chen on this beautiful book, and we're going to be delving into it and discussing some of the things, some of the points, and the mind really behind the story in this book. Elliot, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you so much for joining us right here on Morning Rush.
Thank you for
so this book, I mean, the Storm, just looking at the cover, the name, it's, you know, those kind of movies you're going to eat, there's going to be a storm, where are we going to run to, what's going to happen? So tell us about your book.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the front cover first and foremost, it's meant to depict a storm, as you can see.
Yes.
So basically, this book is a work of fiction, which obviously talks about how drugs were introduced in the country, and how they were distributed across the country, and the various impacts ranging from health implications as well as issues to do with society. I think you've seen a situation that even the president has been talking about how drugs have ravaged our society.
Absolutely.
And we thought that it was high time somebody puts a pen to paper to start talking about what exactly is going on in this. So we talk about, there are different themes. In the whole process, we have also decided to talk about the rich history of our country, Zimbabwe. This is obviously part of one of the themes that you see in the detailed description of our country, in terms of how beautiful it is, and also sort of like dealing with some of the misconceptions that you hear when you travel, that Zimbabwe is not a habitable place and whatever.
We live with lions.
Yeah, so there are some authors like, for example, James Patterson, Sidney Sheldon. When they write, they also take time to talk about their nation. So we felt like it was also necessary for us to bring such kind of themes as well. But of course, one of the sort of like prominent theme in the book is the introduction of the drugs into the country, and how the law enforcement are also battling with this.
Okay, so you know, you talk about the introduction of drugs, and is your book based on true statistics or the truthness, or is it just fictitious?
So what this book is all about is that we've decided to fictionize what is happening in the country. So whilst there's some resemblance of actual places and like, there are times when we have actually used some statistics. Sadly for our country, I think some of the statistics that we wanted, we couldn't find them. So obviously we used some global statistics, but we have tried by all means to talk about statistics that obviously that you can get from Ministry of Health, and also some articles that we have come across obviously have inspired us to write about certain things. I think that we have had situations, even the introduction of brothels, where these drugs are actually being consumed and the like. So some of these stories we have sort of like shaped how we've portrayed, because we wanted to be as closer to reality as possible, and also to talk about how society is grappling
with that. So this is co-authored. How do you co-author a book? I mean, how do two great minds come to one story? Was it a fight? Tell us about the journey of how you guys got together with Rumbi Chen. I don't know if she's in Zimbabwe, and if she's in Zimbabwe as well or abroad.
Also, Rumbi Chen is a Zimbabwean, very much Zimbabwean. She's based in Melbourne, Australia. Right. And she's also an author. She has written some books. But for me, this is my first time to obviously be a part of that. So how it happened is that I used to write articles and post on WhatsApp, and then people said, "Chingotipa book rachu." So you see what I'm saying. So whilst I was invited by Rumbi to be a speaker at one of the when she was launching one of her books, and then from there we started talking. And then we came up with this idea of talking about issues to do with drugs. She's also passionate about issues to do with drugs and everything. And we said, so let's do it. It was not an easy thing, but I think what gave us motivation is that we don't have many people in Zimbabwe collaborating on things. And we said we want to set an example in terms of where two people can actually come together and actually collaborate on a project. So that was point number one. Number two, we had common interests in terms of issues to do with drugs and the like, which we felt like not much emphasis has been put there. I think one of the frustrations was also to do with certain drugs that are not even classified as dangerous drugs, yet they are actually affecting society. So So the challenge is like you map out a book, someone is in Australia, you've got 9 hours difference.
Yes, exactly.
And so you write something, you send across, she reviews, there are concerns, you also have got meetings. And those meetings, they take place at sometimes here 11 p.m., sometimes my 12 midnight.
Exactly,
here.
the time difference.
Yeah, the time difference has been very, very difficult. But I think it was quite fulfilling to go through this journey. And
yeah, I mean, I can imagine.
Yeah.
With all the meetings and this size of a book as well, I think you two really have brought something to light, because this is, I mean, look, you can turn this into a workbook, literally.
Yes,
you know, and a lot of us need to be educated on the issue of drug and substance abuse as well. I see a lot of topics here, you know, just perusing through this. You talk about LGBTQ issues in this book as well, governmental issues in the US and things like that. What lessons are we drawing from that?
So I think when you look at this book, and even the one we are working on, what we're trying to do is we try to write a book that is purely Zimbabwean, which tells our story, which is why, number one, we talk about our country, the history of our country, from the time of Coglan and to present time. And then also we talk about social interactions and how foreign cultures
have crept in.
Exactly, have crept in. And also our local stance as a country to say. So you see that in this book, whilst the FBI was teaming up with ZRP to deal with certain crimes that were happening here in Zimbabwe, there was a team of people that was assembled by FBI. But of course, because of our laws in terms of LGBTQ and whatever it is, I think our authorities said no.
No, we can't have that.
So that is not to say we are discriminating, but that is the position in terms
we
of
as Zimbabwe
as
stand.
Zimbabweans. This is where we stand. This is where we stand. So of course we need to write a book from those lenses and to say as Zimbabweans, I think culturally and also even legally, this is our position.
Right. Yeah. And what chapter can you say is the one that, you know, probably stands out for you the most, that you would actually like people to maybe read twice or
Chapter
3 times?
8.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8 is a very short chapter, a very sad one, of a guy who battled with drugs. He received a lot of support. He was in a sort of like what do you call it, rehabilitation center.
Yes.
And I think there was no doubt in the minds of like everyone, even the reporters who came to talk to the person and whatever it is. This guy was also very confident that he was not going to go back to the life of drugs. But what happened is that so his aunt actually came to pick him up. So on their way home, they obviously decided to stop over at the shopping mall to pick up some groceries. The guy lost his bearing, so and he ended up in a bar. And there were cheers in the bar, and then they said, no, it's this guy's birthday, and all drinks are on me. So a mug of beer was placed in front of him, and whilst he was busy thinking, and he said, obviously, small bubbles started forming, tears coming down, etc. And there were voices in his mind. The one voice saying, you need to partake of this. The other voice says, no, this is now history. But in the end, obviously,
he takes the beer.
He takes the beer and says, what can one mug change in a man's life?
Yeah.
But of course, that was that marked the beginning of him going back to the life of drugs. So it talks about how
addiction.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's very difficult for us to even understand the life of an addict.
Exactly. And also sometimes whether the methods that we are used to isolate someone and say they are in a center, is that effective enough? Or we also need some intervention when someone is in that in the actual society where they are living, because if you isolate a person, they don't have privileges.
Yes.
So, but if they are able to overcome when they are still within their social setting, then you know obviously they are managing.
They're managing, hey?
Yeah.
Wow, it is actually a very short story. And even when you were talking, I was just perusing through it. I'm thinking, wow, it hits home. It's real life. So that's one of the things also that I'm picking up. Like you really are talking about, obviously it's fictitious, but you really are talking about issues that we are dealing with as a community. What do you want to come out of this book? What would you like to see coming out of this book that you guys have written?
So I think the first issue is that we would like the nation to understand that the issues of drug abuse is real, and that we need more education, even in schools from as early as primary school and everything, right across, but also at the presidium. Yeah. We need more emphasis. I know the president has been talking a lot about it, but I think we need to have structures across even different places to make sure that
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much for this book, and I do know that it's going to really help a lot of people. So thank you. Well, where do we find, just quickly, where do we find it in 2 seconds? Sorry. Where do we find this book?
Okay, so number 12 Cleveland Avenue, you can be able to purchase this, but it's also on Amazon.
Okay, 12 Cleveland Avenue and Amazon.
Konapo, Ipapo pa ZTN Prime, DSTV channel 294, the place to be.